a great privilege for me to be here and being able to make a contribution to this conference, and I have to say I'm really quite honoured to be asked to sort of give an opening address here. I'm deeply humbled really that people might think that I would have something to contribute to this subject of moving on. I think the magic of ImagineBetter conferences is that they come from the people. They come from families and they come from disabled people, and that's where the real learning and the real passion for the journey comes from. And I think over these next few days it'll be just a wonderful opportunity for us all to explore the personal journeys that people are taking. You know, life's not perfect, but the journeys are an indication of the capacity and the power and determination of people and their families to really seek a good life. And it's just going to provide us with great richness that we listen to those stories, that we explore the programs and practices and policies that New Zealand has in place to support people to move through a range of life transitions. And I sincerely hope that this conference will inspire us all to question and to reflect on how we can better support people, particularly those we love and care for, through these major life transitions. I have got some slides. You know, so because transition really is just dealing with the major life changes, and these are challenging for us all. It's not something that's specific to people with disabilities, this idea of transitioning from one life stage to another. You know, when you get to my age, my next transition is this idea of retirement. I'm still struggling with that. And just because I really haven't got quite a clue what it is. And I know I have to plan for it, because good planning prevents piss poor performance. And I could be in the piss poor performance category when it comes to retiring. And unfortunately we're not clear enough about these things. We're not clear enough about how we think through this pathway to transition. And these are some of the things that I'd quite like to raise in my address this morning. Now, it seems that I often get charged with, or at least accused of, so I might as well be charged with, raising the issue of what might be described as the elephant in the room. And according to Wikipedia, the elephant in the room is a common metaphor for an obvious truth that is either being ignored or going unaddressed. And this expression also applies to an obvious problem or a risk that nobody wants to discuss. And it's based on the idea that if there's an elephant in the room, it would be impossible to overlook it. Those people in the room who pretend that the elephant's not there have chosen to avoid dealing with the looming issues and with the big issues. So, as the opening speaker, I might as well be the one that lays the elephant on the table and tries to articulate what I believe some of these looming issues are. So, as you may have already guessed from the title of this presentation, A Bridge to Nowhere, I feel it's important to raise some challenges to much of our current thinking and approaches to the issue of transition, particularly as it plays out in the lives of disabled people. This title highlights really a deep concern that I have got, and that is that we apply much effort and we place much reliance on the process of or the programs for transition, but we give scant, if any, attention to the question of transition to what. The investment in transition processes and programs appears to be more concerned with the moving of people from one set of prescribed and defined services to another. The transition is a program that you enter in order to enable you to enter another program. And at the end of the day, what this means for people with disabilities is that no matter what your life change, what is almost certain is that you will remain firmly embedded in a limited set of life options, and that these life options will be prescribed, defined and contracted as being your lot in life, what you are permitted to aspire to. And far too often for people with disability, the process of transition is simply an end in itself, or a bridge to nowhere. So far too often today we are failing to advance the life potential of disabled people through our transition services. And this is despite our very sincere efforts. We still find people's lives are failing to flourish. People with disabilities are still not living full, meaningful and inclusive lives within our society. And it would appear to me that the underlying reasons for this are based on the fact that in our mainstream Western cultures, there is a belief that people with functional impairments cannot or should not have a fulfilling life. This idea that life fulfillment for people who live with disabilities is often absent or significantly diminished. And this is true not just of our human service organisations, but we see it permeating our education system. It's deep within our communities, and in many cases it sits within the heart of families, and it sits within the psyche of disabled people themselves. We've become preoccupied within our service cultures in just endlessly evaluating who people are not. You know, what people cannot do, who people will never be or never become. And we do this rather than unleashing the hope and the potential that exists in the lives of all people. Our belief appears to be that if a person is not competent in a range of functionality, then they cannot or should not expect to lead contributing, happy and fulfilled lives. And what this belief does is it lowers the bar. It lowers the expectations that people have for their lives, and it leads people and those who support them to settle for what is rather than for what might be. People are required to give up the ordinary hopes, the dreams and the expectations of life. They never aspire to expect more from life, never imagine better or pursue better. And the danger then is that people actually believe that a good life is not possible for them. I had an experience that highlights this just this past week when I was talking with a young woman who has an intellectual disability, and she made a remark. I'm quite blingy, as people who know me well know. And she made a comment about the jewellery I was wearing, and I asked her, did she like jewellery? And she said, oh yes, she loves jewellery. She likes to go to the jewellery stores, she looks at the jewellery in the craft markets. And I said, have you got some nice pieces? Oh, she said, people like me don't have jewellery. Where do we get these messages from? Because if we believe this message, then this is the message that we will act on. And then what could be possible in life is left unexplored. It leaves people with no options but to settle for the expedient, the safe and the comfortable, even though that is almost always disappointing. It's very clear that throughout history we have always underestimated the potential of disabled people. We settle for too little. We settle too soon and too easily. And this is reinforced and rewarded within our systems and by our processes. However, when we settle for limited options, when we have a limited vision and apply limited effort, and we conform with what the system offers, then what we in fact do is we sacrifice the life opportunities of others. People can be very easily persuaded that they have little or no potential and therefore must settle for what others perceive as possible for them. And we as parents, as families, educators and professionals foreclose too early on the possibilities, and as a result the people we love and care for have very little choice but to themselves settle for or conform with our own limited expectations. If transition processes continue to operate from this basis of low expectation, then it will be very difficult to ever get to better. If you hold low or no expectations for people, then don't be surprised when people live up to these. By holding few expectations, we deny people the opportunity to take up those roles that not only enable them to demonstrate their competencies, but also provide them with a bridge to somewhere, a bridge to roles, a bridge to relationships, and to real participation in the life of our communities. For many people who live with disabilities, their life purpose continues to elude them. And that is not because it would not be possible to attain, but because we have no vision for it. And what we have no vision for, we have no interest in pursuing. It is far too easy to find an immediate solution that will fill up a person's day, and for this to then take precedence over how to engage with and build upon a person's life potential. If transition processes put no energy into better, then it is certain you will never get to better, and it is certain that the good life will remain absent. And this absence is no trivial matter, and it will have consequences for the people. If transition processes lead people to living in a pattern of life, holding expectations and opportunities that do not work for them, and do not acknowledge their unique life potential, this will show up in countless ways. But the key sign is distress. When people's potential and distinctiveness in life is ignored or is denied, then difficulties and distress are the inevitable result. And to quote from Martin Luther King, and people will live with the soft oppression of low expectations. If this is to change, we all need to have the courage to acknowledge that we have a part to play in this, and the roles that agencies, systems and stereotypes play in contributing to this oppression. Because if you treat an individual as he is, then he will stay as he is. So we see that the lives of people living with disabilities are not often lived to their potential. This is not because of any personal limitations that the individual may have, but because those of us responsible for the promotion and development of what might be possible in their lives are ourselves beset with fears, with anxieties, and with stereotype that result in a limited vision of that potential that a person could have for a full and meaningful life. Where there is no shared vision for fulfillment, people can and will be thwarted and oppressed by the very agencies and systems that have been designed to support them. As the Bible says, where there is no vision, the people perish. The key factor in this is the extent to which most of us are limited by what we have not yet seen or experienced. Our beliefs about what is actually practical and reasonable tend to be things which are already part of our life, what we already know and are familiar with, rather than options which are as yet untried or unfamiliar. I sort of liken it in New Zealand to, if you're raised in New Zealand, you could be forgiven for believing that all swans are black until you see one white one. And once you've seen one white one, you know that all swans are not black and that something else is possible. And I think if you pay attention to this conference over these next few days, you will see many white swans. People who, despite the challenges of the system, have taken authority over their own lives and providing a way forward for us in understanding what can be achieved should we apply ourselves to its attainment. So what we consider to be realistic is often more of what we already have. It's more of what has already happened rather than what has not yet happened or may yet be possible. And in many cases, we may be deeply sceptical of what is new simply because the old is so very comfortable, even if it's not all that satisfying. But if we never explore the possible, the undeveloped and the underdeveloped and the hidden potential of people, then we cannot expect that we will find it. Despite this, however, the lives of people living with disabilities are better in the year 2014 than they have ever been in human history. And we have not reached this situation by accident. Such change happens when people realise that the lives of people have become stuck. Generally, they have become stuck within the very systems designed to support them to grow, to learn and to develop. And it's only when we come to realise that more is possible and that the life opportunities currently being offered to people are not good enough that we feel compelled to change. So over these next few days, I'd like to challenge us to think differently about the opportunities that transition provides. I'd like us to consider an approach to supporting people with the disabilities who successfully move through life in a way that honours them, that honours their unique gifts, their talents and their interests. And this is an approach that recognises that we all, whether we have a disability or not, have different roads to travel in life. And that in order to be of service to people during a period of transition, we must consciously open up these roads and enable people to travel on the journey of their own life rather than on the journey or the road that has been prescribed by services. Transition then is an opportunity. It is an opportunity to deeply consider life options, to explore new opportunities, hopes and aspirations. This is what people actually need during any phase of transition. And as transition providers, families and disabled people, we need a vision for what could be possible and we need the resources and strategies to be applied to open up the next level of possibility, never to close down, to close the hopes, the dreams, or the options that could be pursued. I just like this little quote from Eric Leventhal. You know, you are here on earth to unearth who on earth you are. And this is kind of the story of transition. It is the unearthing of the person. Because how many of us are now living a life that in times past we would not have imagined was possible? I often reflect on the life of Mother Teresa. You know, when you think about this woman, until her mid-40s, she was pretty much an ordinary teaching nun. And it wasn't until the later part of her life that she became the fighter for social justice that we know today. But the reality is that that life was always waiting. It was always within her. It just had to be discovered. It had to be unleashed. And there are all types of chapters waiting to be written in the lives of all of us. And the aim of transition is that of discovery. It is discovery of what is not yet known, of what is possible, what is still to unfold. And this is a responsibility we all share. It is quite possible to become something that you have never been. And this, in fact, must be the fundamental challenge of transition. As Buddha says, your purpose in life is to find your purpose and to give your whole life and soul to it. The primary consideration, therefore, within transition must be, what is the life purpose for this person? What would a good life look like for them? One of the challenges that confronts us is that it might not always be obvious to us what a fulfilling life for a person would look like. And this is especially the case if we allow assumptions, obstacles, stereotypes and barriers to frame for us what is possible. Every individual will answer the question, what is a good life, in very different ways. But the truth is that we must always ask it, because it is a universal need and desire for all human beings to have lives that are happy and fulfilling. And we all know that much satisfaction comes from the pursuit of passions and interests in life, however simple these might be. So, understanding a person's specific requirements for fulfillment begins with understanding and appreciating that each person is a unique human being, and every one of us marches to the beat of a different drum. While we may not understand or appreciate the passions of others, we must never dismiss them as irrelevant to the needs and the life potential of that person. To be of any benefit in the journey of life, transition services can never have a predetermined outcome or result in the same solutions being provided for large numbers of people. The individuality of the pathway forward has to be unique, not a pathway that is pre-designed or predetermined. To discover the passion, to discover the person, and to embrace the challenge, these are the true roles of transition. And much of what is fundamental and essentially fulfilling for a person might in fact be quite simple and quite inexpensive. But for transition to lead people towards a positive future, it needs to awaken in them the hopes for personal fulfillment and to give them the resources to pursue that fulfillment. And given the opportunity, people will seek the things that bring them the deepest satisfaction, and these should never be dismissed just because we do not know yet how we might attain them. To pursue such fulfillment, however, we must be prepared to recognise that a good life is not a perfect life. It's not an easy life. A good life is not without its challenges. And to settle for an unchallenged life is to assign that life to mediocrity. As fulfillment is not about getting everything you want, but it is about having the opportunity to take on the challenges that will lead us to a good life. If we remain open to the possibility that people can and do learn from life, then it is important for us to recognise that making mistakes is not fatal. In fact, people can and most often are stronger and better for such experiences. In transition, as in all services, we will make much greater progress if we truly partner with people around these hard and often confronting issues, rather than seeing our role as trying to shield or save people from the challenges and the struggles of life. The process of transition is essentially a process of seeking to move towards personal fulfillment. It is a hard and complex journey, one where there must be an emphasis on the level of empowerment and authority of people, and to enable them to exercise determination over their own lives, their own hopes, and their own dreams for their future. In transition, as in many of our services, we can become much too paternalistic, and as such not give real decisions, hard decisions, about what paths could be taken to the people and the families who will live those lives. Imagining better, then, is about beginning the process of finding better in the lives of people with disability. To imagine better requires that we change the stereotypes and assumptions that surround people's lives. It requires us to place our focus on the competencies and abilities that people have, rather than placing our emphasis on the struggles and challenges. After all, people will live up to the expectations that we hold for them. And it is the hopes and dreams of people that are the substance of getting us to better. It is from the hopes and dreams that the practical things will arise that will solve the problems of attaining better, and it is never the other way around. If you can only imagine better once everything is in place, for example, you've got the funding, the supports, the building, the staff, then you are already trapped. And you are trapped in solutions before you have any deep sense of what it is that you are wanting to achieve, what it is that might be possible. It is the dreaming, it is the vision building that is always at the basis of problem solving. Because the dreaming is the thought process that enables us to find a different way of solving the problem. Indeed, the reason that we have already come so far is because there have been people, most often parents, who have refused to accept reality as it is, or as it is presented to them. What we do know is that where an authentic pursuit for meaningful life exists, transition agencies can search for good answers and do find them, as many of the stories to be told over these next few days will attest. But to do this well, you have to first be engaged in imagining better. Fulfillment can be intentionally pursued, and transition services can constructively support this quest. Transition must be prepared to work on the underdeveloped and the hidden potential of a person if it is to be a pathway to a positive road in life. To be effective in the life of a person, transition support must be seen as posing proactive lifestyle questions. Questions such as what would be possible for the life of this person. However, we also need to acknowledge that even when sincere effort is applied, fulfilment is never guaranteed. But it is certainly more likely to succeed when a person's potential is recognised and acted upon in a proactive and sustained way. There is no doubt that people will flourish when they live to their potential, and that they are happier when they are engaging their potential. It is a fundamental need for people to live in accordance with their purpose in life. Life is only fulfilling when you have much to look forward to, when it makes sense to you, and when it engages your potential for growth and development. And people are satisfied when they have a sense of achievement in life. As service providers, particularly providers charged with planning and designing positive futures for young people with disabilities, we have a responsibility to stop recreating the past. We must confront the issues that limit people's lives, the low expectations held about people, and the limited vision and the lack of faith in what could be better. These challenges must be addressed at both the policy and the practice level. We must stop investing in standardised service solutions or the establishment of a pattern into which individuals are required to fit or to find their place. To truly respond to the needs of individuals requires that there is variability from one person to another. When people are not the same, you cannot place them in the same mould. So we cannot say that it doesn't matter who the person is, we are going to do things the same way for everyone. Any system that fails to respond to diversity pushes people into standardised systems, and these systems are highly associated with doing things the same way, the way they have always been done. And under such approaches, individuals inevitably become sacrificed to the standardisation of the system. And if you lack a concern for the individual, you will never have individualisation. Always standardisation, standardised service options for people to slot into. We've made significant attempts to try and understand individualisation and person-centredness over the last 10 to 15 years. However, what we have attempted to do is to individualise the bureaucratic processes rather than attempting to establish a genuine focus on the life of the individual. And as providers, we have a responsibility to believe in better for the people we serve. We must commit to working alongside of disabled people to discover their true purpose in life. We must have faith in people to pursue that life purpose and to help them achieve their dreams, whatever those dreams may be. This means we must develop supports, one person at a time. Be prepared to recognise that everyone who is seeking their own road in life is a unique human being who will need a unique set of responses to enable that road in life to be followed. So in conclusion, I'd like to conclude with a quote from Michael Kendrick. So much of what is important in life requires faith. It often requires that we believe in something before it comes true. If we don't have faith, then we won't do any of the great things that need to be done, because we do not believe. We will not put ourselves out there. We will not take a risk. We must be sincerely convinced within ourselves, or we will always defer committed action. And when it is the hopes and dreams of life that become deferred or ignored, then life itself and its potential will fade. Only then will transition services become a gateway to better, more purposeful and fulfilling lives for people with disabilities. Only then will transition services become a bridge to roles, relationships and real participation in community life. And only then will transition services become a bridge to somewhere. Thank you.